It started a long time ago. Mark was only 10 years old when he felt the presence of this monster. It was an ordinary evening. While he and his mother were waiting for his father to arrive, Mark was helping her with the cooking. The boy loved cooking with his mother and was always happy to greet his father from work. He had an almost perfect childhood, except for one peculiarity: a creature living in their pantry. As he was cutting vegetables for salad, he heard someone scratching at the pantry door. Mark was so frightened that he almost cut his fingers. His mother looked first at the pantry, then at him, and said, "There he goes scratching again." The boy asked his mother what that sound was. His mother replied that it started when they first moved into the house. Sometimes the creature scratches at the door, sometimes it drops vegetables and jars from the pantry shelves. This was not comfort to Mark, and a second later they heard the scratching sound again. He was really scared again. His mother noticed it and said there was nothing to be afraid of. She went to the door and opened it. After this, the sound stopped. In spite of this, the creature in the pantry still really frightened Mark. He never got close to the pantry, but he still continued to help his mother with the cooking, but often left the kitchen when he heard the sound. Many years had passed since then. Mark had lived apart from his parents and had completely forgotten about that creature in the pantry. But soon he had to go back to his parents' house again, since Mom and Dad had died and left him everything they had, including the house itself, as an inheritance. When he returned, everything reminded him of his parents. When he walked into the kitchen, he remembered his mother making him dinner and his father sitting in the living room chair watching TV. It was hard for him to come to terms with his parents' death, but after a while those memories stopped bringing tears to his eyes and he thought of his parents with a smile. One day when he returned from work, he sprawled out in his chair and realized that he had become very much like his father. He smiled at these thoughts, but a second later he heard a creaking sound outside the pantry door. The smile immediately disappeared from his face. Mark jumped up and ran into the kitchen, his heart pounding hard with fear, but he still dared to open the door. When he opened the door, the noise stopped abruptly, and inside he saw nothing but shelves and an old broom. Just like the time his mother had opened that door. Even though he wasn't a kid anymore, the sound still scared him. But after a while, it became nothing more than an annoying noise to him. The grinding continued until he opened the pantry door, and it got on Mark's nerves a lot. But one night everything changed. He came home late from work and crawled tiredly into bed. He dreamed of finally wrapping himself in a blanket and falling asleep after a hard day's work, but as soon as his head bunched on the pillow, there was a grinding sound from the pantry. Mark was just furious, but he didn't want to get out of bed. Still, he decided to forget himself and fell asleep after a while. But a couple of hours later, when he woke up, he noticed something unusual. The scratching had stopped, and that was strange, as the sound only stopped when the door was open. He quickly went downstairs and went into the kitchen. What he saw really alarmed him. The door was wide open. Turning on the light, Mark noticed deep scratches on the bottom of the pantry door, but he knew they had never been there before. As the guy stepped away from the door and looked around, he caught a glimpse of a dark silhouette running past him and disappearing into the pantry, slamming the door behind him. Mark's heart sank in his heels. He began pushing drawers and chairs toward the door to barricade it. Then he ran back into the bedroom and covered himself with the blanket like a child for fear. But despite his strong heartbeat, the guy still managed to get some sleep. The whole next day he was out of sorts, and when his boss suggested he leave early and get some rest, Mark almost shouted the word no. He didn't want to go back to that house. Still, the workday was coming to an end and he had to go back. As he drove the car up to the house, he thought about selling the family house, buying something far away from here. Amid all these thoughts, he didn't notice how he fell asleep. But when he woke up, he still decided to get it over with. This was his home, after all, and he couldn't let the creature kick him out. When he entered the house, he heard a scratching sound that was even louder than before. Now the creature was not only scratching, but also banging furiously on the door. Mark was scared, but he still began to rake the barricade near that door. Angry and ready for anything, he opened the door to the pantry and froze in surprise. A dog came out of the pantry and bumped into the guy's leg. He instinctively bent down and petted the dog, but it wasn't a dog. The dog went back into the pantry and disappeared. It was a ghost. Mark's fear dissipated, and now he wasn't afraid to come home. And every time he opened the pantry door to let the dog out, dog in turn went around and explored the house. Sometimes he would even sit in a chair with him and watch TV. The guy assumed that the dog belonged to the old owners of the house and, even after their death, could not left. Mark grew very fond of this dog and decided to give him a name. He stroked the dog on the head and called him a monster with a smile.